Hello everyone, my name is Skylar Kirkman, and I'll be talking about our legal system and how children are being tried as adults in our society. I want you all to think about the worst thing you've ever done in your entire life. Think about how bad you felt after or how it affected others. Now I want you to imagine everyone in the entire world knowing exactly what you did. Now you must constantly walk around with people whispering about it, staring at you, pulling their children behind their back to protect them from you. Some say you are nothing better than the worst thing you have ever done, and most believe that. So according to the United States law, children are protected from this unfair treatment unless they are charged as an adult. Today, I would like to discuss why this is such a huge problem, not only for the children, but also for you. I intend to convince you that trying children as adults is a huge problem in our society by discussing both biological and statistical research. There has to be some sort of reason behind having two separate court systems, or else we would simply only have one. One of these reasons is biological, because juvenile brains are just not fully developed. A major difference in adolescents' brains, when compared to an adult, is the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is associated with planning, problem solving, and related tasks. The prefrontal cortex stopped growing around age 5, however, it begins growing again just before the child hits puberty. And it actually does not stop growing until their mid-20s. How can we try children as adults when their brains are biologically incapable of making decisions equivalent to those of an adult? According to AACAP.org, based on the stage of their brain development, adolescents are more likely to act on impulse, misread or misinterpret social cues and emotions, get into accidents of all kinds, get involved in fights, and engage in dangerous or risky behavior, and are less likely to think before they act, pause to consider their consequences of those actions, and change their dangerous or inappropriate behaviors. By saying this, I do not wish to give you the impression that we should hold adolescents or never hold adolescents responsible for their actions, because some crimes can be inexcusable. I believe you should take biology into consideration, though, while persecuting these children and forcing them to face the consequences of their actions. As Dr. David Fassler, a psychiatry professor at the University of Vermont College of Medicine, says, "It doesn't mean adolescents can't make a rational decision or appreciate the difference between right and wrong. It does mean, though, particularly when confronted with stressful or emotional decisions, they are more likely to act impulsively on instinct without fully understanding or analyzing the consequences of those actions." So to put this in perspective for you, imagine this example. You're about to graduate high school, but you need a gym class to graduate. In gym, the final is to run a mile, but you don't have any legs. How can you be expected to run the mile if you are not physically capable of doing so? Think of this when you are trying to charge a 14-year-old child as an adult. In addition, more than 10,000 children are housed in adult jails and prisons on any given day in America. Children are 5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted in adult prisons than in juvenile facilities. Sexual assault is counterproductive in rehabilitating children back into society. Statistically, adolescents in prisons also face an increased risk of suicide. The most recent study done in America on juvenile suicide in adult institutions and youth facilities was done in 1980. Funded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, Michael G. Flattery, a researcher with the Community Researcher Forum at the University of Illinois, surveyed the number of suicides in 1,000 jails and juvenile detention centers. The study found that the suicide rate of juveniles in adult jails is 7.7 times higher than that of juvenile detention centers. But in contrast, the survey also found that the juvenile institution suicide rate was lower than that of the general population. Research also shows sending juveniles to adult facilities instead of detention centers has tons of negative effects, like those children will most likely never graduate from high school, have a higher chance of being reincarcerated later in life, and skyrocketing rates of suicide. If you stick a child in prison with murderers, rapists, and robbers, what do you think that child will want to be growing up? And what do you think they'll most likely be once they get out of prison? So in conclusion, I urge you to put yourself in the shoes of an adolescent that made a mistake once and is paying the ultimate price for it later in life. Imagine yourself as a child or teenager and how drastically your life could change by just accidentally being tried as an adult rather than a child. So a real-life example is that of Lionel Tate, a 12-year-old boy convicted of murder. He was wrestling with his 6-year-old sister when he attempted to do a professional wrestling move he had learned from watching a sport on TV. The move resulted in the death of his sister. Not only did Tate mourn a loss of his sibling, he was also prosecuted to be of the highest degree and now faces life in prison. Not saying what he did was right, however, how could a 12-year-old boy have understood that reenacting something he saw on TV could result in real-life consequences? Now that you know about adolescents making decisions compared to adults and the statistics of juveniles in prisons, I hope you all will do as much as you can to help these victims of the system. I also urge you to elect lawmakers who have the intention of protecting our youth. I also urge you, as citizens of the United States, to stand up for what is right and express your freedom of speech. Finally, I urge you to teach your children from right and from wrong, and how quickly their lives can be taken from them. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that was good.